I'm Dr. Erica Bove, and welcome to the Love and Science podcast. I'm your host, and also the founder of Love and Science, Thriving Through Infertility. I'm so excited you're here today. With over a decade of experience helping thousands of women just like you, I empower professional women to build their families with confidence and compassion. Let's dive in. Hello, my loves, and welcome back to the Love and Science podcast. I am so happy you joined us. The date of release of this podcast is actually Thanksgiving, which is my favorite holiday. I think it is so nice to think about being grateful for what we have, to think about the people in our lives, and just to really take a moment and savor the food, savor the family. I also understand that sometimes the holidays can mean less sleep, especially for those of us who are female physicians. And so I wanted to share an interview that I was a guest on. I have a friend and colleague. Her name is Dr. Funke Afolabi-Brown, and she is the Restful Sleep MD. She has a whole practice helping people to get better sleep. And so today, what we talk about is the connection between sleep, fertility, and spoiler alert, we talked about the power of surrender as being completely key to both journeys. So I hope you enjoy. I hope you take some insights that you can really integrate into your own life, into your own fertility journey. And I'd love to know what you think. So drop me a DM, send me a message through my website. I'd love to keep the conversation going. And until then, be well and rest well. Bye.
If you're here for the very first time and you don't know this, we get this incredible Candid Conversations on Tuesdays usually. And I have a phenomenal, just brilliant expert here and friend, Dr. Erica Bove. And for those who don't know me, I'm Dr. Brown. I'm the founder of Restful Sleep MD, where we just really help individuals, especially busy moms and their children, change their relationship with sleep. And so we're going to be talking about something really unique today, and I'm really looking forward to it. We're talking about sleep and how it impacts your fertility journey. So, Dr. Bove, it is amazing to have you. Can you just introduce yourself to our audience?
Absolutely. So my name is Dr. Erica Bove, and I'm a fertility specialist and a fertility coach. I became a coach during COVID, and I'm passionate about helping women professionals, mostly physician women, to undergo the fertility journey with confidence and compassion. And so I do have my fertility practice at the University of Vermont, where I see patients and I adore it. I also found that there was these emotional needs that were being unmet in our professional women patients. And I decided to apply the coaching tools to that in my coaching practice, which is called Love and Science, Thriving Through Infertility, because I fully believe that we need both. We need love and science. And we need to understand mindset work to be able to have the most successful outcomes.
Love and science. I mean, to see how you bring that together, and I've seen you in action, and your passion just comes through. And I think this is a really hard journey for many women, too many to count. And I wrote a blog a while. I was invited to write a blog on sleep and fertility, and I needed to because this is not my area of expertise. Yes, Stella says we need love and science. Absolutely. But as I dug deep into the literature, there was such a tight connection between how sleep can impact that fertility journey. So maybe we even start with that, because I'm sure people are wondering, wait, what's this sleep doctor doing with a fertility specialist, right?
I think that's a great place to start. One of my 3 pillars is evidence-based. So I think if we can start with the evidence and then go from there, it's a really strong foundation. So as we know, sleep is really affected by circadian rhythms, and fertility is affected by circadian rhythms because hormones are actually not released consistently throughout the day and night. We actually release hormones kind of in these pulses. And we need to have restful sleep in order for our female reproductive signals to be optimized. So like ovulation, regular ovulation. And we also need on the male side of things to have restful sleep to have the optimal pulses to create enough testosterone that then leads to optimal sperm. And so we know that on both sides of the equation that sleep is integral to this process. And in people who have dysregulated sleep, so for instance, like shift workers, people who work nights, people who have short sleep, people who are like night owls, so to speak, these people tend to have worse fertility outcomes. So there's a clear association between poor sleep and impaired fertility.
Okay, what a way to start. Because that piece around circadian rhythms, I honestly don't think I knew that. And I think that is just that with the circadian cycle, which makes a lot of sense because, we talk a lot about the, like the appetite hormones and, the hormones that regulate our metabolism, like insulin and things like that. They all follow the circadian rhythms. So of course, that makes absolute sense. That is so powerful.
Yeah. I forgot another thing to say. Can I add more science to our discussion?
Absolutely. I'm loving this. You go.
Okay. So just like most tissues in our body, our eggs like oxygen. So there is actually evidence that women who have something called polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is about 10% of reproductive age women, they often will also have comorbid obstructive sleep apnea. And so what the obstructive sleep apnea does is it reduces the oxygen to the tissues. People sometimes feel this, over time with their heart function, with their lung function, maybe with how they're sort of perfusing their, like distal extremities and things like that. But there's actually some data that when you treat sleep apnea, obstructive sleep apnea, that fertility outcomes are better, which doesn't that make sense? Because the eggs like oxygen too. And, we always think, okay, well, it's heavier patients and if they just lose weight and all these things, that's not the entire story because even lean women with PCOS have an increased rate of having sleep apnea. So, that's another thing. So this is actually independent when they do the studies and they control for the things we talked about, shift workers, et cetera. Obstructive sleep apnea is actually a whole separate variable. And we have to be asking our patients and clients about this. We have to be saying like, do you have like sleepiness during the daytime? Ask the partners, do they snore? Because if we miss that piece of the equation, we could be automatically deducting a chance of success from the process. And we already know it's so hard. We already know success rates are not 100%. So that's one area we could really partner together to make sure all the things are up to snuff. And, people ask me all the time, what can I do to improve my outcomes? And Dr. Brown, there's not a ton I can tell people. I mean, age, we can't control for that. Yeah. I can tell people to stop smoking, but most of my patients are not smoking.
Yeah.
And they always ask about sleep and stress, but this is one thing where if we could really get a handle on this, I really think not only would people feel better on a day-to-day basis, but we'd see it in the numbers as well.
Oh, I love that. That is just so profound right now. So, and this is something we see. There's a higher risk rate of obstructive sleep apnea in people that have PCOS. And so just that connection is so powerful. And so I would say this too, for those out there, if you're on this journey, really paying attention to say, like you said, what are things within my control? And sleep is just something that can be modified. It's something we can work on. And looking at this connection that Dr. Bove has elegantly described to us, I think is so powerful to really lean in to say, okay, you know what? I can't change my age or whatever that looks like, but are there things I could do to improve my sleep? And advocating for yourself. If you're at that point where maybe you're snoring and someone tells you, oh, it's okay, people snore, or maybe you're a little bit on the chubbier side, whatever. Like, absolutely not. Just ask, lean in. If something tells you something is off, that's something we can address. So love it. Okay, so I have another question for you. What kind of challenges do you see with your practice that gets in the way of people getting the sleep they need, restful sleep, good sleep? What do you see most of the time? I know you mentioned stress maybe, but what else?
I think the fertility journey is relentless. So I can't tell you the number of times that my patients, my clients say, Dr. Bove, I wake up at 4:00 in the morning and all I can think about is this next cycle is not going to work. I'm not going to be a parent. I'm not going to grow my family and it's all over. And so with this like panic attacks in the middle of the night that keep people awake and then they can't go back to bed, that's not restful sleep. And so, really trying to sort of understand those triggers and be very proactive about preventing them. And then if they do happen, help people to really like work through them in a way that maybe they can go back to bed, right? They can re-regulate and it doesn't ruin the whole night. So that's probably one of the most common things that I see. And, truly, like I said, most of my patients and clients are professional women. And I think we are all trying to do it all at some level, right? So it's like, 11, 10, 10, 11 p.m. and we're paying the bills and we're, doing this and this and this. And I think we have to understand that the fertility journey, it's almost like, when you have a major surgery, right, we carve out 8 weeks to recover and rest and heal and all those things. And so understanding that the fertility journey is going to take attention. It's going to take energy. It takes energy to grow eggs, truly, literally. And so I think we need to make space in our lives for it so that we can have a sleep routine that works for us, because otherwise we're going to be sort of burning the candle at both ends. And it's going to be really hard to wind down to have restful sleep.
So I'm hearing just the feeling of overwhelm, the sense of uncertainty about what the future holds can lead to rumination, which, I think rumination is a big, big, big sleep disruptor. Regardless of what you're ruminating about, sometimes, especially like you said, if you're a high achieving woman, a professional, you're thinking light years ahead of what the future holds and your kids and grandkids or whatever, your job, whatever, or just that feeling of what next? What if this fails? What if this doesn't work? And in that moment, it can get in your way of getting good sleep, which then leads to the cycle of exhaustion, which can then trigger anxiety, mood issues, which overall then increases your stress level, which can impair the success rate as well. So it's this vicious cycle that I totally hear you. I think that is just something that's, it happens, but being aware of that, being aware of how that may potentially impact, this journey is just really profound.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question? So how do you help your patients with this rumination? So one thing I coach a lot on is like breaking these rumination loops. It is so hard to do in practice. And so what can people do, yes, on the fertility journey, but even more broadly to overcome those struggles?
This right here is what I do all day, every day. And it is a struggle, especially if you're in that pattern. So usually, most times, if you have 1 or 2 episodes of difficulty sleeping, that's pretty normal. You have stress, you have a little bit of a challenge, and it goes away. But most women that I work with that experience this, and I'm sure that you also work with, are in this loop constantly, right? Constant feeling of stress, overwhelm, poor sleep, and the cycle goes on. So really what I recommend to start with is one thing you mentioned, which is having a routine. Because if you think about it, you're busy doing all the things all day, every day, and you've not necessarily had a moment to even check in with yourself and be grounded. And so now you take all those emotions which you have suppressed during the day because you're putting out all the fires, and now it's dark, it's quiet, everybody's asleep, there's nothing else to do, and the thoughts now come like a flood. And so having breaks, that's one of the things I usually will say preventatively, like proactively schedule breaks. And you may need to set a reminder, and it may be just for 2 minutes to just put your feet on the ground, say a quick prayer, take some deep breaths, take a walk around the house or around your office, whatever, just to check in and say, where am I right now, right? Because during the day, you potentially have more resources and bandwidth to handle some of those issues to some degree than waiting till evening where it's like everything is dark and there's nothing else to do but think. So that's one thing I would say you want to just do as part of your routine. And then the second thing, like you said, is fill your cup in the evening. Break the day from the night, right? Don't just go all the way running at 100 miles an hour, jumping right into bed. Let that demarcation be there. Like, we're done with the day. Today we did the best we can. Tomorrow is another one. I think
and I love that so much. So many of us have a morning routine, right? We get up, we start the coffee, we meditate, we pray, and that's like what we do. And that's like somehow we recognize it as necessary for the day to go well. But I don't think that we recognize that the day turns into the night, which turns into the day. And for all of it to go well, we need that cycle. We need to be able to wind down. We need to be able to have a routine to bookend the day so that we can process the emotions and let them go. And And surrender,
Absolutely.
surrender
And
to the night.
surrender, which is what
Yeah.
we're going to talk about again next. So now, one more thing before we even go there, because that message of surrender is so powerful, not just even for the fertility journey. I think just overall for many of us women that hold on to a lot of emotions that get in our way of getting good sleep. So the other thing I would say is if you're in the moment where you're spiraling, now you're agitated because you've listened to this talk and we're telling you sleep is related to fertility. Now you're like under pressure to sleep or whatever it is. I think the important thing is if you start to notice you've been in bed for a while, you're ruminating, you're tossing and turning, you're trying hard to sleep, you're counting down till morning, you're like, oh my God, now it's 3:30 a.m. Oh my goodness, I have only 2 hours left, whatever. At that point, your brain has come to associate being in bed with a state of increased arousal and wakefulness. We don't stay awake in bed. We don't ruminate in bed. That's not what the bed is for. The bed is for sleep. So you want to change those associations. And usually the best way may want to do that, especially if you're having a hard time pulling back and pausing and getting yourself grounded, just get out of bed. You're not sleeping anyway, and it's causing more frustration. So usually what I recommend is get comfortable back to surrender, which we'll be talking about in a moment, with that state of wakefulness. Get out of bed and do something that gives you pleasure, that makes you feel relaxed, that makes you feel joy. Now, not something stimulating, okay? So don't go on your phone. Don't go saying, okay, I might as well start sending those emails on time or whatever. No, no, no. Find something. Maybe it's journaling. Again, maybe it's writing. Maybe it's you know, some people do scrapbooking. Some people do play a round of solitaire. Some people do some reading or listening to a podcast. Like practice just being comfortable in that state for a moment. And sleep occurs, I usually say it occurs almost like waves. So maybe one wave went and you were awake. There's going to be another wave coming soon. And so once you start to feel sleepy again, go back into bed and continue sleeping, right? Notice I didn't say try to sleep. Just go back and sleep. Sleep is never
Oh, I
something you
love
make an
that.
effort to do.
Oh,
So
this is so brilliant. Don't
yeah,
try to
yeah,
sleep, right? Because
no,
the
just
harder we try, the less it happens. And then, especially those of
exactly.
us who are type A, then start to judge ourselves. And it just,
Ex-
oh, and then the
exactly.
waves, as waves, just ride the
Yeah.
wave,
Yeah,
just ride the wave.
absolutely. And I think, and then of course we're doing this on a background of healthy sleep habits, sleep hygiene, you're not drinking too much coffee, you're doing all those regular stuff as well.
Yes.
And it may take practice because this is new to you. This is not something you've done in the past. So you may feel like, what am I doing? I don't feel, why should I get
Yeah,
out of bed? I don't want to get out of bed. But
that's
just
right.
realize again, you're reaffirming the right association that your bed is meant for sleep and sleep is what you do in bed. You don't stay awake and worry and stress out. And so that's usually one of the big pieces of the what I teach women. And it tends to work very, very well. Like you said, which was what caught on very quickly. We're like, we got to talk about this. Just that message of surrender, sometimes we call it like acceptance therapy, right? You just know this is it, this is the state. So I think this is a powerful segue to my last question for you, which is what is that connection in terms of surrender? Because we've said it a couple of times. What does that look like? I mean, for sleep I cannot get it, but how is that similar to that fertility journey?
Yeah. So I've been doing this a really long time, over a decade now. And, you can almost feel when a cycle is going to
Mm.
work, and you can almost feel when it's not.
Wow.
And, like I said, this is why I name my practice Love and Science. I say this as I'm doing an embryo transfer because it takes both. And I do think that we have a highest good, a highest potential of
Mm.
what the cycle could be. Many times that's, 65% if it's a tested embryo and those sorts of things. However, I think that there's ways, and this is said very non-judgmentally, but I
Mm.
think that there's ways when we are too attached to an outcome, or we try to
Mm.
control so many of the things, that we block that flow and
Mm.
we don't allow that highest good to manifest, if that makes sense. And
Oh.
so a lot of my clients are female physicians. At some level, they feel responsible for their care because they're responsible for everybody's care.
Mm.
It's too much responsibility. There's overwhelm, there's fear, and there's this panic of like, well, if this doesn't happen, like, what if this doesn't happen? And that's the ruminating thought.
Mm.
And so what I help people do is work towards acceptance. And we actually talked about this last Friday night at our support group. I say you don't have to like it, but resisting it or avoiding it and all those things is just making the problem grow and increasing the suffering.
Mm.
So there's the pain, right? That's like the thing itself. And then there's the suffering, which is what we make it mean and all the
Mm.
layers of resistance we put on top of it and all the attachment. It's like a
Mm.
death grip on like,
Mm.
this must happen this way or on this
Yeah.
timeline. Like so much that I talk about is timeline. I'm like, this
Mm.
is going to happen when it's meant to happen. We need to release the timeline, right?
Mm.
But it's this space, and I try to get all my patients and clients, if they'll work with me in this, to this magic space of
Mm.
authentic hope, which is opening up the door of the possibility that it's going to happen,
Mm.
and then releasing the outcome. I get chills when I think about it,
Mm.
because that is that surrender space that allows that divine flow, that allows that beautiful surrender to make it as successful as possible.
Oh, chills. I'm getting chills
I know.
too. That
Same.
is so
Good.
profound. That is so
Yeah.
profound. That is incredible. And I love what you've said, because you've done this as a scientist, as a
Yeah.
clinician who's done this again and again and again and seen what has worked. And you can actually identify. And can I just tell you, it is exactly the same thing. I mean, you're not waiting decades to sleep. I can assure you that, or months or years or whatever. But when you surrender, when you let go of that need, I have to sleep, has to come. Why can't I sleep? And you just learn to say, okay, it feels a little uncomfortable right now that I'm awake and everybody else is asleep, but I'm just going to accept it right now, find ways to, occupy myself, being comfortable in that state. Sleep comes. It is all the time. And the moment you start to check in with yourself to say, is it here? Am I sleeping now? Am I sleeping now? You just watch it drifting away again. It is exactly the same. And that's something that I teach the women I work with too. Like, you need to get to the point where it's not this ginormous elephant in the room. Think of it like the analogy I paint, like this incredible, good looking, guy that you're hoping to catch his attention, and you're doing all the things, you're trying so hard, and it's almost like off-putting. It's like, come on,
Yes.
don't try so hard. And the moment you start to like just, classically, in a very nice, elegantly ignore, then the guy's like, what's it about this lady,
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what happens with sleep. When you hold on so tightly, you're thinking about what will happen if I don't sleep today. That means my day is all short. That means I'm going to yell. That means I'm going to, I don't know. Sometimes I let this woman just play it all the way out. Do you literally think a night of poor sleep is going to make you land under the bridge, jobless and homeless? What are the chances? Right now, your brain is running so many thoughts about just that impact of poor sleep it has on you. Yes, we know sleep is important, but let's kind of take it off this pedestal we've placed it for a moment, not because we're ignoring the importance, but ignoring or not allowing it to have just the strong hold that it has on us. And that's the letting go. That's the surrender. That's the acceptance. And that's when magic happens.
Yes. Yes, it is when magic happens.
So how do you then guide women to that desired outcome? Just tell us a little bit more about,
Yeah.
your practice.
So, yeah, I think that one thing that I see in my practice a lot is that, the brain is self-protective.
Mm.
And so by the time that people find me in my coaching practice, people truly believe that it's not going to work. And
Mm.
so, the same thing, like sleep is never going to come. My life is going to be over.
Mm.
This is, I understand, so, people have had lots of bad news over and over again, and they're like, why am I even doing this? It's not going to work. I actually had a client find me because she was like, I'm blocking my own success here.
Mm.
I don't
Wow.
even have a shred of belief that this can happen. And I need to find that because I know that's what I need. And we worked together, and would you believe her next embryo transfer worked, and now she's well into her second trimester. So,
Oh my God.
I think that we have to crack open the door, as I say,
Mm.
to authentic hope. We have to, if there's light behind that dark door, we have to just, or I guess, and in your situation, it would be the reverse, right? We're trying to like help with the dark, but in my situation, I think of like the hope as the, I think
I
it's like
love
the
it.
hope as the light, but we can't see it. So we just have to let that door crack open so that we know that there's light and goodness and belief and faith behind, so that can come streaming in, right? It doesn't have to be like, swinging open the door. It's just that little crack to say, it is possible that this next transfer could work. It is possible that I'm going to have a second kid, because that is the first step to surrendering, is we have to understand that it is possible that something could happen, right? And I mean, like, let's talk about the 12 steps for a little bit. I mean, their first step is to acknowledge your powerlessness too. And so I do think that there is a big element of like, as I say in my practice, like, I am not God. Thank God I'm not God. And I have to recognize that, to allow whatever forces, family members who care about me, just sort of emotional flow states, all those different things that can happen, because thankfully, I am not the one in charge, and that, I'm the vessel, but I have to receive. And so, that's the first step, is sort of that belief. And then we start visualizing it, right? You can't visualize something you think is not going to happen. But once you take these baby steps, so once you start believing it is possible, authentically, authentic hope. I'm not about fake false hope. This is like, you are 32, you have excellent egg reserve, you have 5 embryos in the freezer. Like, we always talk about like, what is in your particular case that is authentically hopeful. We ground ourselves in science and authentic hope. And then we start the visualizations. And so, I will tell you, I was about to do an embryo transfer the other day on a patient. And I came into the room. I'd never met her, because that's sometimes how it works, is you've never met people before you do a transfer. And she was just like a whole ball of nerves.
Oh, man.
I know. And I just intuitively knew that I needed to spend some time meditating and praying with her before we went into the room. And I will tell you, Dr. Brown, it took like maybe 6 minutes most. I mean, it was like this, like, it really, what you think, oh, I don't have time for this, but we actually do. So I sat with her and her husband, we meditated, we prayed, we went into the transfer room. It was a gorgeous embryo transfer, like all the feels, you could feel the chills. Like, I just know in my heart it's going to work, right? I don't know yet, but I know it is. And, and that's, I think, because we were able to get her into that receptive, surrendered state. Whereas before it was like, everything is tight and not, and again, there's no blame here. This is just our self-protective bodies trying to protect us. But we have to find that entry point in. And so we identify when we need to sort of take some time and meditate and pray. We do the visualizations. I have like on my content, actually, for my clients, my program, we actually have a meditation where you can visualize the embryo implanting and, visualize the womb as a good home for a baby and all these different things, because I really do think these things help. So that's kind of, there's so much more to it, but I think that's sort of like the basic version of what we do to help to augment the science, to allow it to be as successful as possible. And, the side effect is that people actually feel better. It doesn't feel good when we're all anxious and worried about the future. But I think I wanted to circle back on this, because one thing that I heard in what you were saying about the sleep is we have to know that we're going to be okay on the other side of it. That helps, whether it's we're worried a feeling is going to destroy us, we're worried that an outcome is going to make us, isolate us or make us, not important in our families or to our husbands or whatever else. And I think that we have to understand that no matter what happens, it is going to be okay. We will find a way through. And that faith and that belief, I think, is what allows us to then surrender, because it's a trustful.
Oh, gosh. Oh, chills all over. I'm going to need to go get a blanket after this. That is so...
Me too.
So good. Oh my God. Authentic hope. Knowing that no matter what happens, everything is going to be okay. It may feel awful. It may feel so scary and overwhelming, but being able to look at that outcome, what does okay mean? I mean, okay is okay, like whatever what that looks like. And so when you go all the way to the end and look at that desired outcome, then you can come back and in that authentic hope to then take the next steps and the next action, but not from a place of fear and and
Yes,
utter desperation makes so much of a difference.
it
And
does.
whether I'm talking about fertility right now or I'm talking about sleep, it's hard for you to know because it's the same.
It's the
And so
same in
that is
life.
in
It's
and
life.
life. Exactly. 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 So good. So good. We could keep going because I have so many questions coming up, but I'll let you go today. But where can people find you if they want to work
Yeah.
with you? And what do you have coming up and things like that?
Yeah. So the best place, the most comprehensive place is my website. It
Mm.
is loveandsciencefertility.com. If you heard this and you're like, oh my gosh, that's me, I'm on the fertility journey, you can book a free call with me. I have a 3-month program where we go through all these different topics and really I help people get into that space. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram. I have a podcast, Love and Science Fertility. Upcoming in the next 2 weeks is my friendship series. And one thing I coach on the most is when somebody has a fertile friend and they're going through the fertility process and it is just ripping their heart out because it's
Mm.
destroying the friendship, it's triggering. And so I created a 2-part series on how we can handle that particular situation. So that's a little bit, but I have to say, I want to thank you, Dr. Brown, because you have changed my orientation to sleep. And it's so interesting because when I wake up in the morning and I've had a good night of sleep, I think Dr. Brown would be so proud. Or like, there was a night this week that my sleep wasn't, that high quality because, I had some unforeseen life events come up and that happens. And I thought, you know what, like Dr. Brown, like she would just tell me to have self-compassion and understand sort of what happened and that tonight's going to be a better night, So the point is that you are in my consciousness, you are in my days of how I think about sleep and sleep quality and optimizing sleep. And I think for so many of us, because I know I'm not alone, that there's like that accountability in there in the best of ways where it's like, I want to make Dr. Brown proud of the quality of sleep. And then my life is better. It really is.
Oh,
So thank you for that.
oh, thank you. That means so much to me. Thank you so much. You're so kind. I mean, brilliant, love and science. Okay, that's all you're all about.
That's right. And you too. You
Oh, I
too.
know, right? I know. So this has been incredible. You guys have to watch this again, bookmark it, share it with someone who is going through this journey, or just share it, period, because the things we've talked about here will absolutely impact your fertility journey. But life, whatever it is, whatever challenges you're facing, knowing that outcome, going in with that authentic hope is going to be the big game changer. Find and follow Dr. Bove, like go straight to her website, go download all her free resources and learn so much from this woman. She is phenomenal. And if you're out there and your sleep is a struggle where you're like, well, I've done all the things, I've tried the meditation, sometimes you do need, someone like myself to step in, to hold your hand, to guide you through, to help you change your relationship, because that change in your relationship with sleep is so critical to helping you to thrive and be the best version of yourself. And you can find us on Facebook. You could find us on our website, restfulsleepmd.com. So this has been incredible.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you
Brown.
all. And until next time, I hope you all rest well.
Yay. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Love and Science podcast. I'm so glad you joined us today. If you found this conversation valuable, if you could please rate, review, and share this podcast with your trusted people, it would mean so much to me. If you want more tools to help you navigate the fertility journey, please book a discovery call with me today. The link is in the show notes. Please do not let infertility have the final word. I'm here to take the burden from you so that you can achieve your goal of building your family. In gratitude, this is Dr. Erica Bove. I'm rooting for you always.